Hey guys, Shane here, Aus Flight Simmer. Welcome to another episode of Full Flight. In today's episode, we are checking out the TBM from Hot Start, and we're going to take it for a quick 150 nautical mile flights all the way up to Bundaberg, and we're going to take a basic look at the autopilot, startup procedures, and programming the FMS. So if you're new to the TBM, why don't you check out the whole video, and this should get you up and running to do some basic flights. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to configure the flight. So we're going to turn the GPU on, we're going to fuel up the tanks, put some passengers in, and take off all our covers, so to speak. So we'll go about 65 to 70, I think, in each tank. And remember to put the caps back on, because the last flight I did, I think it was the left or right engine, I left the cap off, so that was quite interesting. So we'll put a co-pilot in for this one. We'll press back that on again, and we will quickly take off all our covers. There we go, and we'll close the back door, it's closing up behind us, and then we'll jump into the cockpit, and we will do a quick startup. Here we are in the cockpit. First thing we're going to do is close the door so we can't hear or smell the GPU. And what you want to do, if you've flown the aircraft before, you want to quickly check, make sure all your switches are set to the off position, except for the auto start switch is going to be set to on. Make sure the switches down here are off. So it looks like they all are. We're going to put the parking brakes on and lock them in. Trust me, you want to do that, and you'll thank me later for mentioning it. Push the crash bar up, and we'll work on the battery and go straight to the GPU. We'll wait for the Garmin's to load up. I like how they load up and the screens flash just like they would in real life. Once the middle one lights up, we will read the message and hit enter, like we do there, and we should get a loud noise from the master caution, so I apologize for that in advance. We'll kill those pretty quickly. There we go, and there we go. So the first thing I like to do is program the FMS, and the Garmin will pick up what area you're situated in. So obviously we are in YRED, so it will pick up that automatically, be due to the GPS knows where we are. So you just use the FMS knob on the left hand side, and you can then use the keypad to type in your nav points. There is a knob on the right hand side of the FMS, which is your range, and a couple other things. You can hit the direct button to program a direct flight. You have your flight plan, which we're in now to bring up, and also you can use your procedures button when you want to do your arrivals and stuff like that. So we're going to program arrival into runway 14. We'll do that at top of descent, just in case the wind switches to a different direction and we need to change what we're doing. You can also include your jetways, not your jetways, your airways. But we're not using those for these for this flight today, but they're available as well to program it in. I really like using the Garmin 1000 now. I've got used to it a little bit for programming flight plans. I'd rather do them manually instead of importing them in, because I actually find this fun and pretty easy to interact. It's a nice bit of equipment, and it's been modeled very nicely within the Hot Start TBM. So now the flight plan is complete. We're going to activate the leg, so when we turn on the autopilot, we'll fly along the magenta line. We're going to go up to 18,000 feet today, but we'll set an altitude to start off with at 4,000. We're going to put in the VS mode and up to 1,600 feet. That way, once I hit the autopilot and yaw dampener, the aircraft will start doing what I wanted to do. So there we go. So that's a quick program of the FMS done in just a couple of minutes. It is easy as that. So quickly, why I remember, we'll set the barrow and the secondary, because I always forget to do that, and then we should be good to do a start. So make sure that one of the tanks are selected, and we're going to turn on the nav lights because we're about to clear prop, so to speak. And the auxiliary pump goes to on, and the AP trim goes to on. And this is my favorite thing to do, is we'll hold down the starter switch for 2 seconds, and you really get that power, how heavy that prop is to turn. There we go. So we're going to just watch the NG, make sure it gets over 15%, which it has, so we'll move it up to low idle. And then just watching the ITT, make sure it's not going to go into yellow, and it's a nice cool start. Once the NG reaches 50, then we can move the power levers into high idle, which we'll do now. Looks like we've got a pretty good start. There we go, pop in, not to flight idle, to high idle. Aus Flight Simmer. There we go, so it's a nice good start there. I'm going to configure the rest of the aircraft, so we're going to put the fuel selector to auto and the A trim to auto. We're going to put the generators to main and the source down to battery, sorry, to the aircraft. The GPU, we're going to get rid of that because we no longer need you, so he'll power down and he'll go away. And then we're going to turn the bleeds on, and the aircon is on. There we go, you can hear the air rushing into the aircraft. And then we're going to turn the initial separator on, and for some reason I just only on this flight just turned the right pitot heat on, which I left the left one, so I didn't pick this up till later in the flight. I don't know why, because it's on the Garmin, so please forgive me, don't shame me in the comments. And the last thing I like to do at this point is we will get the transponder set, and then we are pretty much ready to turn the taxi lights and get on our way down to the runway. We are ready to go, so we're going to switch the condition levers over to power idle, and then I'm going to pop the brakes on. And then we're going to take the chocks out, and we're going to take the brake hold off. So one thing that you need to do with the control levers is you will need to set up a binding, so that way they can actually go back, because it has like a safety button on there. I've actually bounded mine to the reverses on my Cytec controller, so as you can see here, I'll go and quickly put it in reverse a little bit, and then I'll nudge it up for it to taxi. You know, it's probably not the ideal, but it's the most easiest thing. So you're sort of cutting some of the immersion out by putting in reverse all the time, but it's quite easy to do, and it's all in the same place. So that's what I do for that. And for taxiing, this aircraft is really, really nice to taxi. I love the sounds, and I find if I just have the control levers up to just on the taxi point, I'll need to pop the taxi light on, forgot that. That's enough to keep the speed where you actually need it. Anything more than that, it will start, you know, sprinting away from you. If anybody is interested, Redcliffe International, oh, I shouldn't say international, that's exaggerating a little bit. Redcliffe Airport is a freeware. I'll leave a link in the description below of where I picked up this version for. It's a bit of a lengthy taxi, so we're just going to speed the video up a little bit, and then we'll come back to you just as we're holding short. So we're going to put the brakes on here and hold short. We'll configure the aircraft for takeoff. One thing I did forget to mention is with the Garmin's there is a whole checklist built in. So if you really want to do that professional flight, you can go through the checklist, and it has absolutely everything, and it's really easy to navigate. I'd probably recommend it to do it for your first few flights so you know what to do. before you make up your own flows. So we are going to pop the lights to a landing. We'll put the strobes on. We're going to add flaps to takeoff. Also make sure that your trim is set to takeoff mode as well. Normally you'd have your right and left pitot heats on, but I've forgotten it for this flight. Put the transponder on there, and I already made sure the flight was had an active leg, so when we do put the GPS onto nav mode, it will know where to go. So we're going to make a left-hand turn here as I get it into taxi range. Because it's a very short runway, the TBM likes to get a bit of speed, so we're going to use as much runway as possible, and it has a fantastic turn radius, so it's for a small runway like this, it's easy to do a 180. You may notice I've got synthetic vision on as well. I permanently leave it on. I find it nice and handy. Also helps remind you what runway you're actually going on, so that's pretty good. So it's a dusk flight today. We should be landing right on dusk. Should have some nice lights shining next plane, which is always nice. So we're just going to pop on the anchors here, and we'll get ready to go. You want to ensure that your inertial separator is selected to on. We will switch that off once we get a couple thousand feet to get some more air into the engine. But I'm going to be quiet now. Please enjoy the takeoff. There we go. So I find that the TBM on takeoff going down the runway, it needs really small movements to keep it down the center line, and also just a slight rotation back for a smooth rotation into the air. If you do big large movements, you're going to find that she's going to be sliding all over the place. So we're just going to turn our heading to line up to our magenta line there, and then we'll turn on to nav mode as well. The VS mode should be already engaged because we had that pre-planned for when we switch the autopilot on. So preparation is the key to success with the TBM, as it's a bit of a handful at low speed. So having things like your heading already set of where you need to go, your VS speeds going, your active leg already selected in your plan will make things a lot easier. We're just going to change the heading bug there closer to the magenta line, and then we'll change over to nav mode very, very, very shortly. And I think it's about time to turn the inertial separator off, and what you'll find is that the torque percentages will increase a little bit as the engine is getting more air into it, so you need to make sure that you're not sitting on 100%. And the torque is something you need to keep an eye out, because as you know, when you get to cruising speed or descending, you do need to control this, and you can see that my torque is probably going to go over 100% as it just did now, and then I'm just going to have to move that back. We're sitting at about 103% now, so we'll just drop that back a little bit. So you need to keep an eye on it when you do switch it off, just so you don't over torque the engine. I have now placed the aircraft in nav mode, and we are tracking just about to follow the magenta line. So the VS speeds are good. This thing goes like a rocket, and also the aircraft speeds are good. So there's not really much to do just as a airliner here. The aircraft and the GPS work really, really well. So we're going to keep cruising up to 18,000 feet for today's flight to Bundaberg, and we'll come back to you shortly. Okay, so we're about halfway through the flight and probably about 7 or 8 minutes to our top of descent. So we're going to go into the flight planner, into the procedures. So we hit the procedures button. We're going to select the approach into Bundaberg, and we're going to use the RNAV-Z for 14. And we're going to use the Bedina for the insertion points, and we're going to load that in. So as you can see, it's very easy to put procedures in, and you can see it's loaded in. Excuse me for a sec while I keep playing around with the FMC here, or the FMS, but we're going to activate that as we get past Maggie. But that's how easy it is to load a flight plan in. As you can see, it's just sitting there waiting for us. So that's the flight plan done. I'm going to click my fingers in a sec and we'll be at top of descent. So we're going to drop our altitude down and put our VAIR speed down to about 1200. You can also put on the first Garmin a pathway section there over the synthetic vision, so if you want to see what VAIR speed that you need to do. I don't like it because I don't like the square blocks, but you'll notice as we come closer to where we need to be, I'll bring it up periodically just to make sure I'm on the right path. And we're going to turn it off from the Barrow and change it to Bundaberg's Barrow, and we're pretty much all set for our descent all the way into Bundaberg. So we have just passed underneath 5,000 feet there. Apologies, as you can see, two ortho tiles are connected there on the left, so the scenery is a little bit different. I've already enabled our approach on, but I'll just reenact that for you. So we'll just go into the procedures tab and activate the approach, and you'll see that now the approach and the original magenta line are lined up together. So we'll just zoom in so you guys can see, and then we'll continue flying our approach in. So we are going to continue on. There's not really much to do here than other to monitor your torque, your speed, your descent rates, but we'll continue through our nav points, and I'll come back to you as we are approaching into the runway. We are now making our final approach in. We need to be about 2,700 feet. Then our next waypoint, I think it's about 1,500. So we can see the runway is in sight. There we go. We're all lined up. You can see the puppy lights there. We're a little bit low, but that's okay. We will work that out manually and make sure that we're not too low or too high. So if this is the first time you've come across the Hot Start TBM, I will put a card up the top here that'll pop up right now, and that'll be the test drive video I did a couple of weeks back. I go through more in depth of the menu system and the persistence of the aircraft. I would highly recommend, if you want something that is simulated very heavily and an all-round, probably one of the best GA aircraft in flight sim, to go and pick this up. This flight that I'm doing in this video is merely for if you just picked it up and you want to learn how the basics of the aircraft to do the first flight. This is what we're doing here, but I would highly recommend taking a look. If you're sitting on the fence, check out that video, and that might persuade you, is it going to be for you or not. We are now only a couple of miles out from the airport, so we're going to put the gears down and then we'll put our flaps into the landing position after that. I found with the aircraft you want to keep it around about the 95 mark, and that's a stable entry into landing. Anything higher than that, or actually anything lower than that, the aircraft will come very unstable, and anything higher than that, you're just going to float. So we are doing a crosswind landing. This aircraft is very, very particular and hard to fly in a crosswind landing. I've just turned the autopilot there, but I'm going to just keep the yaw dampener on because it is blowing a fair bit, and we'll turn our inertial separator on there as well. So it will make things interesting. I've never got a crosswind landing done perfect, so we'll see how we go. And I'm just trimming the aircraft. Also, it likes to be pretty much all trim down, which you might find that odd, but that's how this aircraft likes to fly, and that's how it's recommended to fly as well. So we're probably a little bit high, so we'll have to drop our altitude a little bit. I'm just getting a caution warning because of the inertial separator.
500.
We'll disconnect the yaw dampener now, and we'll continue on. For my best landings I've done is I've found that if I can afford to not put the aircraft in reverse thrust upon landing, and also I try to do shallow landings. So far, as you can see, the aircraft does like to porpoise around a little bit.
Ahead.
We're going to be quiet now. Please enjoy the landing, and I'll come back to you soon.
Minimum. Airspeed.
There we go, so we're just straightening up now. As you can see, upon landing I didn't put the reversers on, and I tried to do minimal adjustments into the rudder as it was trying to veer off the left, being a crosswind landing. So we're going to slow here. We're going to do a 180. We'll take a quick look at the replay, and then we'll come back to you while we're taxiing in. The aircraft is all configured for taxis, so flaps up, transponder is off, taxi lights on, and strobe light is off as well. So if you are enjoying the video, please hit the like button, it's much appreciated. Hoping to get 100 likes, as they really help the video along. If you're new to the Aus Flight Simmer channel, please hit the subscribe button, subscribe button. It's found on the right hand side if you want to see weekly quality flight sim videos out each week. So we're going to park here. We'll put the parking brakes on, and then we will shut down the aircraft. So the first thing we're going to do is move the levers over to high idle, and we're going to turn the taxi lights off. There we go, and then we're going to move the levers down to idle, low idle, and then to the off position. We've got master caution, we'll just clear that. Turn the inertial separators off, and both pitot heats will go off. There we go, so the fuel is cut off and the engine is winding down. We're going to turn off the amp trim off, also the auto selector for the fuel and the fuel pump. Go and turn on the GPU and put the power to GPU, and turn the generators off. Turn the master cautions off, and we are done. Nav lights are off. We're going to open up the door, and the only thing we need to do now is to trip the battery off, and the aircraft is done. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this video helped you out, and it gets you going for your first flight with the Hot Start TBM. Thanks very much for watching. My name is Shane. I'm Aus Flight Simmer. I'll see you on the next video.